Brooklyn Beckham is once again at the center of growing speculation, and this time it's not because of a new project, a fashion campaign, or even his marriage. It's because fans believe they are watching something much more personal unfold in real time, a quiet but increasingly obvious distance between Brooklyn and the Beckham family. What made the internet react wasn't one huge scandalous moment, it was silence, the kind of silence that feels deliberate, the kind that makes people stop and ask whether something deeper is happening behind the scenes. For a family that has spent decades presenting a united front, every post, every absence, and every interaction suddenly means something. And when Brooklyn appeared to publicly celebrate his mother-in-law while not showing the same warmth toward Victoria Beckham, people immediately began to wonder whether this was more than just an oversight. Because in celebrity families, especially one as famous and carefully watched as the Beckhams, people don't just notice what is said, they notice what is missing. And once that conversation started, old rumors came rushing back, reports of tension, whispers of emotional distance, stories suggesting Brooklyn may no longer be as close to his parents and siblings as he once seemed. Now, what used to sound like tabloid noise is starting to feel more serious, because when the eldest Beckham son begins to look cold, detached, or absent from the family image, fans don't just see personal drama, they see cracks forming in one of the most iconic celebrity family brands in the world. And that is exactly why this story has become impossible to ignore. What makes this story so fascinating is that people are not reacting to one explosive confrontation, they are reacting to a pattern that, over time, has made Brooklyn seem more emotionally distant from the family he once appeared deeply connected to. In the past, the Beckham brand was built on togetherness, family birthdays, fashion events, vacations, football tributes, and carefully shared moments all helped create the image of a close and supportive household. Brooklyn, as the eldest son, was a major part of that image. He wasn't just David and Victoria Beckham's child, he was the first next-generation Beckham, the one people watched grow up in public. That is why every small shift now feels magnified. Fans have started paying closer attention to what Brooklyn posts, who he supports publicly, which family events he appears to miss, and how often he seems more present in the Peltz family world than in the Beckham one. Even if none of those moments alone prove a major falling out, together they have created a powerful impression that Brooklyn's emotional center may have shifted. And for the public, that idea is irresistible, because when a son marries into another powerful family, people immediately begin looking for signs of influence, loyalty, and separation. They start asking whether marriage changed him, whether old family dynamics became harder to manage, or whether distance had been growing for years and only now became visible. That's what has made Brooklyn's recent behavior such a hot topic. He no longer looks like a natural extension of the Beckham family machine. Instead, to many observers, he looks like someone slowly building a different identity, one that may not revolve around his famous parents anymore. And whether that perception is fully true or not, it has already changed the way people see him. Because once the public senses emotional distance, every gesture begins to look like evidence, every omission starts to feel intentional, and every family silence becomes louder than words.
No conversation about Brooklyn Beckham's growing distance from his family can happen without one major name entering the picture: Nicola Peltz. Ever since Brooklyn married Nicola, public attention around their relationship with the Beckham family has only intensified. Fair or unfair, many fans and media outlets have repeatedly framed Nicola as a central figure in the tension, not necessarily because she has openly attacked the Beckhams, but because the timeline of the rumored family strain seems to overlap so strongly with Brooklyn's life after marriage. From the outside, the story has often been presented as a shift in loyalty. Brooklyn no longer appearing primarily as Victoria and David's son, but as Nicola's husband first. And in celebrity culture, that kind of transition is always watched closely, especially when both families are wealthy, famous, and used to control over their public image. The public doesn't just ask whether Brooklyn is happy, they ask who has the stronger influence, who feels shut out, and whether private tensions are spilling into public view through small but unmistakable signs. That's why Nicola's presence in the story feels so significant. Brooklyn often appears fiercely devoted to her, publicly affectionate, and deeply aligned with her world. On its own, that would not be unusual for a newly married man. But when that devotion appears to come alongside visible distance from his own family, people begin connecting the dots in ways that fuel even more speculation. Some believe Nicola gave Brooklyn the emotional freedom to step away from old family expectations. Others think she may have deepened existing divides. And still others argue that she has become an easy target in a much more complicated family dynamic that was already under pressure long before she arrived. But whatever the truth is, the perception remains powerful. Brooklyn now seems more rooted in his marriage than in the Beckham family orbit. And once the public starts seeing a wife as the symbol of a son's separation from his parents, the drama becomes far bigger than celebrity gossip. It becomes a story about influence, loyalty, identity, and the painful question of what happens when marriage appears to pull someone away from where they came from. The most damaging part of this story may not be what is happening behind closed doors, but how visible the distance has started to feel in public. In famous families, perception can become reality very quickly. You do not need a direct statement, a leaked argument, or a dramatic confrontation for people to believe something is wrong. Sometimes all it takes is a missing birthday post, an awkward absence from a family moment, or a visible lack of public support where fans expected warmth. And that is exactly what has happened here. The Brooklyn Beckham situation has become less about one confirmed conflict and more about a growing collection of moments that feel emotionally off. Each one may be explainable on its own, but together they create a narrative that is hard to ignore, that Brooklyn no longer moves in sync with the Beckham family the way he once did. That shift matters because the Beckhams are not just a family, they are a global brand built on style, success, and unity. For years, David and Victoria represented a rare celebrity couple who survived pressure, fame, and public scrutiny while keeping their family image remarkably strong. Their children were always part of that picture, helping reinforce the idea that this was more than celebrity polish, it was family stability. So when Brooklyn starts to appear emotionally disconnected, the impact reaches beyond him personally. It threatens the image of togetherness that has helped define the Beckham name for years, and the public notices that immediately. What makes it even more intense is that silence leaves room for projection. Because no one is fully explaining what is happening, fans and tabloids fill in the blanks themselves. Every small move becomes symbolic, every appearance is analyzed, every relationship dynamic gets reinterpreted through the lens of possible fallout. That is how private tension turns into public mythology. And once that mythology takes hold, it becomes incredibly difficult to control. At that point, even ordinary choices can be seen as proof that the family bond is weakening.
The question now is no longer whether people notice the distance. They do. The real question is whether this is just a temporary period of tension or the sign of a much deeper break that may not heal anytime soon. That is what makes the story around Brooklyn Beckham so emotionally compelling. Because beneath all the headlines, the social media analysis, and the celebrity gossip, there is a very human fear at the center of it. What happens when someone slowly drifts away from the family that once defined them? For Brooklyn, that question feels especially powerful because his identity was shaped in public from the very beginning. He was never just a private son growing up in an ordinary home. He was David and Victoria Beckham's first child, raised inside one of the most watched celebrity families in the world. Every stage of his life carried the weight of legacy, expectation, and public attention. So if he is now trying to carve out distance, it may not be as simple as rebellion or coldness. It may be about control, about adulthood, about marriage, about trying to build a life that feels truly his, even if that comes at the cost of appearing detached from the people who raised him. But the sad reality is that emotional separation rarely looks noble from the outside. To the public, it often just looks painful. It looks like distance, silence, and unresolved hurt.
And when that silence stretches on, people begin to wonder whether the bond can ever fully return to what it once was. Some families go through phases like this and eventually reconnect. Others never quite repair the fracture. That uncertainty is what keeps people watching Brooklyn so closely now. Because if he continues appearing more aligned with his new life than with the Beckham family, the perception of a permanent shift will only grow stronger. And once people begin to believe that the connection is truly fading, every future interaction will be judged through that lens, not as normal family complexity, but as evidence of a relationship that may be slipping further away. Whether Brooklyn Beckham is intentionally creating distance or simply living a new chapter of his life, one thing is already clear. The way people see the Beckham family has changed. For years, they represented more than fame. They represented control, stability, a rare kind of celebrity dynasty that always seemed polished, united, and emotionally solid no matter what pressures surrounded them. But now, that image feels more fragile than ever. Because when the eldest son begins to look disconnected, the story stops being about a few awkward headlines and starts becoming something much bigger. The unraveling of a family narrative the public believed for decades. And that is why this moment matters so much. Not because anyone has confirmed a dramatic family war, but because people can feel the emotional shift. They can sense that something is different. The warmth does not look the same. The loyalty no longer feels automatic. The closeness that once seemed effortless now appears uncertain, and that uncertainty has opened the door to endless speculation. In many ways, Brooklyn has become the symbol of that change. He is no longer just the Beckham son people grew up watching. He now stands at the center of a deeper story about adulthood, marriage, family loyalty, and the quiet ways relationships can transform under pressure. Maybe this tension will fade. Maybe private healing will happen away from the spotlight. Or maybe this is the beginning of a permanent emotional reset inside one of the world's most famous families. But right now, the silence, the distance, and the public reaction are all pointing in the same direction. Something has shifted, and people can see it. And for a family whose image once looked untouchable, that may be the most shocking part of all.